Vintage Brand is the story of American sporting culture, combining our rich history, traditions, rituals, and pageantry. Weaving together more than a century of American sports memories and images, it defines what tradition really means. Come experience the history and rituals. Remember and honor the legends. Feel the passion and pageantry of the past. Welcome to the greatest collection of American sports history and images, all reproduced on fan apparel and merchandise. Welcome to Vintage Brand.
Welcome everyone to a special edition of The Games People Play with Bernie Corbett. I am Bernie Corbett, and once again, special edition indeed. I'm very pleased to be here today with a true Las Vegas legend, and of the likes of Tom Jones, Don Rickles, and Liberace. We have with us a legend of the Strip for 4 decades, an icon in the world of the sports book, one of the most respected since all the way back to the late 1970s, now with DraftKings, and it's an honor to have the opportunity to spend some time today with Johnny Avello. Johnny, welcome to the show, and nice to have you spending a moment off the Strip to talk to us there, which has been your home now for many years.
Hi, Bernie. That's a great introduction, but I don't deserve to be in the same category as those guys you just mentioned.
Well, Vegas legend indeed. We'll be delving into that, and as we do here, our format on the Games People Play, Johnny, we like to go back to the beginning, and your beginnings, Poughkeepsie, New York, and your first really exposure to wagering, if you will, or to any of the games that involve wagering, was trips to the racetrack all the way back to very early formative years. I believe your first trip might have been at the age of 5. Was that a local racetrack to Poughkeepsie, or was it a summer excursion up to Saratoga, which I'm no stranger to?
That would be Saratoga Thoroughbred and Saratoga Harness at night. So what we did, my mom and dad took me up there at that age, you mentioned 5 years old. We would go to the flats during the day, to harness at night, and we would spend about 2 or 3 days up there doing that each and every day. So yeah, I actually got exposure to racing at a very early age.
You know, I have an uncle that has been a very prominent, let's say, horse player. It's been a big passion in his life, and he talked about just the early impression that the whole track experience had on him. Would you say that similar to your experience, did you really kind of get caught up in the ambiance of the racetrack itself from that early time in your life?
Well, I didn't know much about handicapping, obviously, at that age, but
Right.
it was exciting for me to watch the horses run around the track.
Right.
And my mom and dad let me pick a horse, and they would play, $2 on it. So when I did hit, yeah, that was very exciting. So you would say that I did get that gambling excitement in my blood very early, and I guess it's carried over now for almost 65 years.
Yeah, exactly, and counting. It absolutely. And as far as your interest in that area, you got out of high school there and was looking to make your next move career-wise. You actually did take a class. There was a gaming school in New York City that you attended. The idea was to get to Atlantic City. I guess you had no idea that your destiny would take you many miles beyond Atlantic City, all the way to Vegas.
I did not. Resort, I think it was called Resort, just Resort Casino was the only casino in Atlantic City, and that was my plan to go there. And when they refused to take any applicants from the New York School of Gaming, my only choice was to go to Las Vegas. I was just recently married, and I told my wife, look, something I've been working on here for years, so I'm going to go, and I'm going to call you once I get a job. And that was the plan, and that's exactly what happened.
Never been averse to taking risks. Case in point, Johnny, I researched the fact that you had taken an earlier cross-country trip that was not for a lack of some danger involved there, but you were completely undaunted by that when you made that second foray west.
Oh boy, what a trip! I'll never forget it. And the gentleman I went with was a lifelong friend. He still lives in Poughkeepsie. We still talk about it. We left Poughkeepsie with $250, and he traveled for over 3 months.
Wow.
Across the country. Yeah, there was quite a few experiences along the way. Some dangerous and most pleasant.
Well, the second time was the charm for you. You arrived in Vegas, I believe, 1976, and you did land a job out there in the business. So, mission accomplished there. You were able to check that box to literally and figuratively get your foot in the door.
Yeah, it was actually 79, Bernie. It was
79. I'm sorry. Yep.
Yeah, January of 79. I got a job at the Hotel Nevada. That no longer exists. That was owned by Jackie Gahn. Jackie Gahn and his entire family have had a presence in Las Vegas. His son's Michael Gahn, who owns the South Point. Great guy to work for. There wasn't a lot of money, but I was happy to be working and learning the trade of dice, roulette, and 21.
Able to cut your teeth and get some much needed experience and some exposure. What about your first impressions of the life, if you will, near the casino with the focal point of Vegas and the casino and the business of gambling? What was it like at that time? Certainly a much different era, the one that you first experienced.
Yeah, there were about 300,000 people in town. I used to make trips onto the Strip, go to the old Sands and the Aladdin and the Dune, just to watch some of the old-timers deal, see if I could pick up anything to help my craft, and who knows, maybe even run across someone who would ask me, hey, we're looking for some help today. One thing that always stands out in my mind, I got an apartment, and I was hanging out by the pool on one of my days off. And I was making about $20 a day total, counting tips and salary. And the guy said to me, hey, you're new in town, huh? And I said, yeah, and I'm really loving it. He says, I told him, yeah, I'm making about $20 a day. And he goes, oh, you know what? You're just getting your feet wet. When after you're here for a while, you're going to see that, this is a place where you can really make some money and have a great lifestyle. So I'll never forget him telling me that. That wasn't my ultimate goal. My ultimate goal was to come out here and do something I really enjoyed.
Well, it turned out to be prophetic, Johnny, as to the way that it all played out, wasn't it?
It really did. It turned out well for me. I'm grateful for this city of Las Vegas, all the people I've met here, and I've been very fortunate.
Looking at another once again how things fall into place and in anybody's life's journey, I believe 1984 you got a break with some friends that allowed you to get exposure to a number of areas of the business and really from once again always an advantage to learn a business at every stage of the way, and that opportunity that came upon at that point really did give you that experience.
Yeah, Bernie, the table games arena, craps and roulette, 21, it's all rather boring. If the games are structured and, in the game of 21, if you hit on soft 16 and stay on 17 and, on craps you roll a number, you got to hit that number again before you roll a 7, and roulette you spin the wheel and then if in a certain number or a certain area you win. But there's nothing else to it except the exact rules of the game.
Right.
So I found that sports wagering and horse racing, which was also, part of the area, if you go into a race of sports book, you'll see both. But I found that sports betting had more gray areas. There were questions to be asked and moves you would make that you would change you would So I found that much more exciting than just the plain vanilla casino game.
And as you delved into the sportsbook side, where obviously you have made your name as a Vegas legend to the present day, I got to ask you, were you a rabid sports fan growing up? I'm going to assume that you were probably a fan of the New York teams growing up in Poughkeepsie, New York, but was that a big passion for you as a fan before you got into a very different side of this business in terms of the actual business side of sports?
Yeah, I would say sports has played a big part in my life. I played a lot of sports, and pretty much all the major type of sports I've played throughout my career. The watching of sports, certainly New York Giants and Mets were drilled into my head at an early age. So
Yep.
fan of those teams, as well as the Knicks. And I bet with the bookie at an early age. I mean, I was betting with the bookie when I was 15 years old. So, yeah, I'd say I've been heavily associated with sports.
Okay. And as you got deeper into the odds-making side of it and the sportsbook side, your first big opportunity, I believe, the Sands, the Las Vegas Hilton, which led to your tenure at Bally's, where you were for about 15 years. So your rise there, kind of to the top of the business itself, was a progressive arc for you, but before too long, you became one of the most respected guys in the business, just on the strength of the sweat equity that you put in.
Yeah, it was a long journey. It didn't happen quickly. I never expect anything. I'm one of those kind of guys that tries to learn the most I can about something, apply myself, give you all I have, and just let the future take care of itself. And so when I got into the sports business, I started at the very bottom, learning that how to write tickets, how to be an admin, all the customer service, watching some of the supervisors work and what to do and what not to do. And then when I went from the Las Vegas Hilton, which I was a ticket writer there, to the Sands as a supervisor, I worked under a couple of guys that have been in the business for quite a while, and certainly picked up as much knowledge from them as I could. And then when I got my own director's job at Bally's in 1975, it's just been a learning experience throughout. And I'm still learning.
Yeah.
One of those business where you just don't know it all, and there's always a new and creative ways to do things.
That prompts my question, Johnny, and who better than you to answer it, as to how it has changed, the process, if you will, of setting the odds and putting, making the book, putting the book together in terms of handicapping sporting events and games. I mean, the old school was, I believe, was much more of a hands-on manual approach that you had, as opposed to now. Did you ever think it would evolve into what it is now? I mean, to give us kind of a compare and contrast with everything being so statistically based and everything being so rooted in analytics. I mean, that's a dramatic departure in what's happened in your profession.
There's a lot of things have changed, and there are some that haven't. The things that have changed is that you are right. I used to do everything manually. I would write down my power ratings for every team.
Yep.
And make all the manual changes. And as through the years, and certainly now, we've progressed to a different way of doing it. Algorithms certainly take present now, and they form what the lines are today. Now, even though an algorithm could spit out a number, you still have to have the gut feeling and use your head on what that number really should be. Even though an algorithm could spit out a 7 on a game, you may really think that game should be 5.5, and you have to go with that gut portion of it when you do put up those numbers. So a lot has changed in the way we do our numbers and all the offerings. I'll give you, for instance, Bernie. So on games, we'll have 10 or 20 different service. You need to talk to customers frequently and handle any issues that they may have. And I don't care what kind of technology comes out, there is going to be nothing ever to replace that.
Absolutely. And with the company that you're with now, Johnny, essentially almost, from what I understand, taken out of retirement, or you were on your way to retirement when DraftKings, I guess, made you the proverbial offer that you could not refuse to be part of their operation and the cutting edge. Their customer service, what they can do in terms of customer service in the digital age, puts everything on a new level, it would appear.
Yeah, we're learning. We do a good job, and we constantly get better at it. As you know, when you're at Wynn like I was, my last job,
yep.
I'm running a department, and I got about 25 to 30 people working under me, ticket writers and supervisors, and everybody that makes up the team. It's kind of easy to get your hands around that. When you're a company like DraftKings that has 3,000 employees and you continuously are growing in different states, we do a really good job, but we're learning how to do a better job.
And once again, with the melding, if you will, the meshing of the old and the new, I almost feel I could be talking to a baseball scout now about the same degree of analytics and how much of the analytics is sprinkled in. But there's still the gut feeling you have about that phenom that's on the mound that might cause you to maybe draft them a little bit higher when the time comes and your name is called.
No question about it. There's a lot of things in this business that are gut felt, and when you've been in it a long time, you go with that. Whether it's who's betting, how sharp that bettor might be, establishing a number on a game, or just other various factors that have to do with this sport.
Couple of areas that you have been a pioneer in this business. One is something that's grown ever popular and now is almost taken as something that's very much accepted and expected when major events come out, and that is just the setting of the odds on non-sports events. The Oscars is one that you can give us some insight about that I know particularly near and dear to your heart, but reality shows such as Survivor, American Idol, the political, the election season itself, but in particular, I know one of your loves is the Oscars because of the great affinity that you have and the fact that you've been a movie aficionado your whole life. That's been a whole different area and departure that I'm sure has been very enjoyable for you to get into as a passion.
Bernie, I consider myself not a racing sports guy, but an entertainment guy. I just always, when I lived back in New York, I used to go and see a lot of Broadway plays. I've always kind of been involved in the structure of movies, how they're made, and so the Oscars was kind of natural for me making the odds on it, not only for Best Picture in the top 6, but all 24 categories.
Right.
You're right. I have been making odds on the Oscars for a very long time, going back to 1994. It was for fun, for the most part, coffee table material. Certainly, we got a lot of exposure on it at all the places I've worked, but we never took a bet on it until I came to DraftKings, and now we are. And you
right.
mentioned all those others, the Emmys and the Grammys. We have taken wagers on the Emmys. We hope to on the Grammys. We're doing the hot dog eating contest is coming up this week. We're doing on that. That's odds I made for a long time. Never took a bet, but now we are at DraftKings. So yeah, things have changed. So I love the entertainment aspect being part of DraftKings, being able to offer those types of wagers to our clientele.
I know you've noted that you watch movies much differently. If you sit down and watch a movie with your wife, the two of you watch it from much different perspectives.
Oh, no question. There are many times where she hated it and I loved it.
And you're ever evaluating those categories from cinematography to costume and design, etc.
Yeah, it's not, and that's what happens. when I watch something, I say, well, that's good, but what's the odds of this happening? Or maybe I could turn this into an odds betting proposition.
Another area also that I'm sure fans of the games people play, you may wonder, oftentimes you wonder, where did that come from? Where did it start? Things that, once again, they become accepted and expected. The whole concept of prop bets, who's the first guy in the Super Bowl to score a touchdown that's allergic to shellfish, all that stuff, I think we could trace back to you and prop bets, which have become one of the most popular sidebars, if you will, or features that everybody spends a lot of time talking about relative to major events such as the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I've been involved in the prop business and seen that grow. Back in the 80s, we used to put up some props, but very few. And now we're putting up 300, 500 Super Bowl, and every day on the DraftKings site, you'll see probably 20 propositions for every game that's being played.
Wow.
So every day is actually a Super Bowl. Go to the DraftKings website, and that's what you're looking for. Now, I have come up with a lot of props. During those years, a lot of my own props, the initiator of them, but so has every other bookmaker that's in the business. So I could never take credit for prop, being the originator of prop betting. I've just added to it.
And for the record, Johnny, I'm not sure if anybody that's allergic to shellfish scored a touchdown in the last Super Bowl. So,
yeah, true.
Yeah, I'm not sure. You could place that on my permanent record anyway. But and of course, the business now and the evolution of the business, a lot of it, Johnny, is tied in with legalization and what is transpiring there. How do you see the legalization expansion, if you will, across America to all 50 states? I mean, state by state, it seems like case by case, state by state, they're falling in line. And this is going to open up really a whole new world in the business that you have been at the forefront of for 40 years.
I love when we enter a new state. So we're in 14 now. Soon, New York will be on board on the digital component side. Louisiana passed it; they'll be on board soon. Ohio, Canada, they've passed it. So yeah, there are so many states that either have approved it or are going to approve it within the next year. So I expect probably within the next couple of years we're going to have at least 30 states on board. I'm pretty excited for that, Bernie, because that means that we have this huge pot that people bet into with this tremendous amount of handle. People betting both sides of the game, all the offerings we put up, and to me that as a bookmaker, that type of volume is extraordinary.
It absolutely, just absolutely exponential growth in that area. In the meantime, once again, I look at that DraftKings business model, absolutely brilliant. And one of the areas I know that you have promoted, going back and looking through major recent events, things thank God, getting back to normal with an NFL season, a Super Bowl that we had able to play right through the Super Bowl, but no March Madness 2020. March Madness was back with a vengeance in 2021. But these free contests that are offered by DraftKings, you've been very closely involved with those, and those offerings can run across all of 50 states, regardless of where they may stand with legalization. That has certainly been a huge factor for DraftKings' continued spiral and continued growth.
Oh, they've been so tremendous. We got a team that works on the pools every day, and the team is a bunch of guys that are probably 25 to 35 years old, somewhere in that range. And these guys are so passionate about putting up these different types of pools. So they're just scouring out there for the hot topics of the day to be able to put a pool on them. And we'll have things up there like the housewives. We'll have the weather up there in different states. Certainly politics is up there all the time.
Sure.
And one that's on here quite regularly. And we put up the money. This is the great part about the pools, is that we at DraftKings put up the money, and everyone, as you mentioned, in all the 50 states could play because it's free.
Yeah.
And in some of those pools, we have a tremendous amount of money, $100,000, $1 million sometimes in some of the pools. Some are lower-level pools with 1,000 or 5,000, but it's a way for people to make money without putting up their own. And we realize that these have been some tough times for some individuals, and it's a way to have skin in the game without putting up any of your own money.
The way I'm looking at things right now, Johnny, across the board is a return to the old normal with a new appreciation that everybody should have for what we had that we maybe took for granted. As I mentioned that, I know once again from looking back to if we were having this conversation a year ago, a pretty dark time, but in terms of being innovative and being creative, I noted some of the things you mentioned about cornhole, and the pandemic sports calendar was pretty barren, and as a result, the creativity. I mean, you were looking at what, NASCAR and table tennis with in-game point-by-point wagering. Just give us a little bit of a look back, not so fondly to the pandemic, before we get back to looking ahead and looking at what we have here in the present, which is certainly a lot more favorable for us, more auspicious right now.
There was some good that came out of, I should say there's probably a lot of good that came out of the pandemic. As far as sports wagering is concerned, we lost all the core content and really had to pivot to find, something to offer our clientele. So we were offering table tennis, darts, simulated NASCAR racing, obscure soccer league. We went out and tried to find anything we could that we could put up on our site. And we have continued to expand that with things like cornhole, which we do book, college lacrosse, which we introduced this year, college hockey, which we haven't done before. We introduced that, which did so well during the playoffs. I'm a big fan of college hockey, and I used to book it at Wynn and brought it on board here to DraftKings, and I knew it would do well, and it did extraordinarily well. And pickleball is something else we're looking at. It's a game I play, and I know there's a pro tour out there, and it's something that I think we'll be diving into that next. But my point is, Bernie, that we had to go out and find this content, and the positive thing that came out of this pandemic was that all of these things are here to stay. So the core sports are all back. We expanded our menu, and we have people to continue to play some of these things that we initiated back last March or April. I'm happy to say that we have one of the biggest venues of any sports book in the entire world.
Interesting. You happen to know college hockey with my background as broadcasting hockey for Boston University for the past 35 years, and it was something that you couldn't find a line on. But you mentioned we were in the NCAA tournament with Boston University, and all of a sudden I'd hear from people saying, there's a line on the game, or it was a little bit of a departure, and I thought that might have been part of that might have been a product of the pandemic. So duly noted that that was something that was that all of a sudden was out there much in a much different form.
Yeah, we all know that college hockey. I love college hockey. I think it's a great sport, and some of these colleges that people aren't familiar with, like the Bemidji State and the Lake Superiors and the St. Cloud.
St. Cloud, yep. They knocked us out, yep.
American International. I mean, who knows about American International?
That's right.
So we also get exposure to these schools. So these schools should be thankful. We're going to bring new enrollment to them.
That's right. Absolutely. And as long as you spell the name right, it's good publicity, No doubt about that. And I also, just to give people perspective as far as what you do, what you have been doing, what you do now, what is the day in the life now for Johnny Avello as the director of, as the sportsbook director for DraftKings? What's your typical day for you out in Vegas as far as how you approach it, attack it, and your process?
Yeah, I'm still involved in the bookmaking, somewhat more of a consultant to the entire team because we have a great team now that does everything. But I have to, I certainly have to be involved with some of these novelty sports and give my opinion on things when I don't think things are going correctly or we're missing the boat on something. But I'm involved in that aspect of it. I'm also involved in, with the retail team, trying to set up new locations around the country. I also try to help recruit places to come in, let DraftKings be the provider for their sports book. I'm involved with players, player acquisition. The commissioner of the championship series when we have contests around the country, but in fantasy and sports, I attend those. So I'm wearing a lot of hats for the company. I really enjoy that, Bernie. I like diversity.
Like the variety being the spice of your life. Not surprising with the fertile, inquiring mind that you have that has made you what you've become today, and your reputation for what you've established. Also, wanted to note, are you still first on college football? That was one of the notes that I saw. Johnny was always first. 3 o'clock on Sunday, you'd have those lines out for the college football week ahead.
Yeah, we still get them up pretty early.
Yep.
I don't know if we're exactly first, but we're probably going to be coming up this season. Right now, we have a lot of games up for the regular season. We've gone out and picked some of the better games we think for the season. We have, of course, all the team futures up. We have teams to reach the conference final. We have regular season wins on all the college teams. And we even have some player futures, Heisman Trophy winners. That's all up, too. So we have a lot of content, and it's only June.
Well, Shakespeare said the play's the thing, but in your case, Johnny, the game always has to be the thing. I mean, as far as individual players, I mean, they're part of it, but in your business, and as far as the odds making, the game has to be in the forefront. Give us a little bit of insight into that in terms of your evaluation process. People might say something about a Tom Brady or a Pat Mahomes or whatever it happens to be, but you really, the focus has really got to be the game and the big picture.
The game, and you're talking about just the isolated game itself.
Yes. Yep.
Yes, it certainly is. I mean, as much content as we put up around the game or around the conference or around who's going to win it all, the A game is the biggest right of all. People are going to bet more on to win the particular game. Now, they may spread out their money in different areas, but we all know that when there's a matchup like this in college football, George is playing Clemson in the September 4th or so. What could be a bigger game than that,
Yep.
early in the season? And there's a lot of games like that. Alabama's playing Miami early. But although we derive all these other markets around those games, you're right. The game is going to handle the biggest percentage of all the money that comes in.
Always a focus. Another phenomenon that I became familiar with through a friend of mine that shall remain nameless that lived in another market, and he got involved. I guess it was fairly early on. I had never heard about it. This goes back several years ago. The whole concept of the in-play betting, Johnny, the in-game betting. And the reason I knew is this friend who shall remain nameless, he was involved, I believe it was something that he did offshore, and he would call and have me set up my radio here in Boston to be able to access the call of a game, let's say an NBA game that he was betting in game. I was fascinated by that because I didn't realize it literally is a moment to moment, a point to point, a play to play, a breath to breath phenomenon. As far as the future of that, the in-play and the in-game betting, that seems to be another area that is just being tapped into to a greater level.
You mentioned one word there, future, and that in-play is the future of the business. It continues to grow. We do it on every single sport, almost every single sport. You can bet not only the the new line for the game, the new total for the game, but which team's going to score next. Are they going to get a first down? In golf, will they hit the fairway? Will they get a birdie or a par on this hole?
Right.
Who's going to have a better score on this hole? So we've expanded that menu also, and that is so popular. And there are some people who only bet in-game and not the game itself. They don't like the line for the game, so they say, I'll wait until the game starts, and I might be able to get a better price. A lot of times they're right. So in-game to me is it's been around for as far as I know, 10 years or so.
Yeah.
It's just grown to new heights.
And you see that as one very important element of the future. What other areas do you see as you look ahead here for the next 3 to 5 to 10 years? That's certainly one. Everything that really ties into the DraftKings model. But as you see it in terms of the areas of the business that are really going to continue to take off.
Well, there may be some new sports come on board. I mentioned one sport there was pickleball. We're not doing it yet, but there's a pro pickleball tour. I play pickleball. That's how come I know of the game. It's a fun game. And there's a lot of young people who were ex-tennis pros who are now playing on the pro pickleball circuit. There's a pro pickleball U.S. Open. And so that's, as we, as sports continue to evolve, new types of games, and they are in a professional mode, we will book some of these. And so you're going to see new sports come on board. You're going to see us come up with some of the new offerings, like the draft this year. We did an in-game wagering on the draft. That's never been done before. So we're constantly thinking of new ways to, give our customers everything they're asking for and more.
As you look back on, once again, 4 decades of being in this business, is there one particular or maybe a couple of instances that you can think of that, boy, everything looked right and it went wrong? Or everything looked wrong and it went right? One of the reasons I mentioned that, you mentioned about being a Giants fan. I am a very passionate New York Football Giants fan and season ticket holder, and I still think back, and when I go to pray every night, I thank God for those 2 Super Bowls, particularly the first one, and how stunning it was in terms of what the line was with the perfect Patriots. But as you look back, is there a couple of things that immediately come to mind where you just had to step back and say, man, I'm doing this for a living. I'm in this business, but I didn't see that coming. Wow.
Well, if there's one thing you must know about bookmakers is that we make mistakes. We put up bad lines, and we give the players a big advantage, and sometimes the sharp players will take advantage of those